Today we're interviewing Haani Jafri, a scientist at Impossible Foods. It's a pleasure to be interviewing you today. My name is Raul Kawuru. I'm a rising freshman at St. Paul School and the vice president at CompanyRoots.
My name is Suresh Shasti. I'm a rising junior at Homedale High School, and I'm the founder of CompanyRoots. Before the interview, we just wanted to thank you for taking your time. The first question that we always ask is, what were your company roots and how do they help you get into Impossible Foods?
Okay, before Impossible Foods, I actually worked at the USDA, the Agricultural Research Service.
Mm-hmm.
And there, in school, I studied physics and I applied the physics background to material science type work.
Mm-hmm.
So there, the whole mission was to use agricultural waste streams and make new products out of them to make the American agribusiness more profitable and more sustainable. And while I was there, I was doing a process called electrospinning and a lot of more physics heavy work, but I was exposed to a lot of food science type work. So I got into making, edible films, observed extrusion processes, just got a good feel for all of that. And once time ran out there, it kind of segued into working at Impossible Foods.
Yeah.
So excluding your family, what person or group has helped you most to be where you are right now?
Can I say family, friends?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of counts as, it's like, people I call uncle or something, just people I knew growing up. And once I left school, and I started looking, they helped me a lot to, get a resume that makes sense, apply in their companies and do all that. So, personally, I'm not the best at, just being a cold interview person, like going to a company without knowing anybody and all that.
Yeah.
This was a big help for me, like having someone I know already and being more comfortable.
Yeah. So how do you engineer the Impossible Burger? Do you genetically modify any plants to do this?
So from my end, I'll talk about my role at Impossible. I work on the materials and texture team, right? And so I use material science methods, measuring viscosities, measuring how much force it takes to puncture the food,
Yeah.
And I use those processes to figure out what the food might feel like in your mouth. So how chewy is it? How juicy is it? Does it squish? Is it springy? Things like that. And so from that angle, that's how I'm engineering the food. So, I'm looking at the raw ingredients, using the amounts or different processes, designing processes, and seeing what effect that has on the final texture.
So I saw that Impossible Foods has its very own lab. So what type of equipment is used in the workspace, both in the lab and outside?
We have all sorts of equipment. So starting at the smallest scales, when we're doing, tiny, like, introductory work, we have rheometers. You guys know what those are?
No.
Okay, no problem. So rheometers are like most commonly they're like two parallel plates, two circles, parallel plates, and you put a little bit of sample on the bottom plate, and you lower the top plate onto it, and what the machine does is applies a rotational force to the top plate, right? And as it's touching the sample, and the sample's touching the bottom plate, the sample either goes with it very easily or resists the turning.
Yeah.
So at the same time the machine is applying the rotational force, it's also sensing the resistance, right?
Okay.
And we call that a stress and strain. Don't worry about that. But so the measurements are those two things, the force applied and the resistance to that force. And surprisingly, I mean, it may not sound like it, but just those two things charted properly, when the data is analyzed, tells us a remarkable amount of information about what the material is doing.
Yeah.
So say we put meat on it, it'll tell us at what temperature does it start cooking, because we can see, oh look, it's the the forces pushing back on the rotation are pretty low. But at this
Mhm.
temperature and time, it just shoots up. So we know it cooks very quickly, or it shoots up very slowly over a range of temperatures. So we know there's different proteins maybe denaturing as you cook meat.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's able to tell us a lot of information like that. That's at the small scale. And then sticking with the texture, once you go into a bigger scale, um, I guess I'll count this as our instruments, is the coworkers, the tasters.
Hmm.
So that we rely heavily on people tasting the meat, right? Or tasting the food. And they tell us what's going on. Is it too chewy? Is it too dry? And then we have texture analyzers. All it is a robot arm that either punctures the food or pulls it apart.
Hmm.
And depending on the attachment, depending on the shape of the sample, with the food, go cut it into any shape. We get different type of force over time curves. So the
Yeah.
y-axis is force, x-axis is time, and that gives us a good picture of what might be changing as we change ingredients and stuff. And then going to the flavor side, we use machines like the GCMS.
Yeah.
You can look those up, and they really helped in figuring out flavors, the molecules in the meat. So we put the meat in there, and it tells us what everything is made of. And these are common machines in all food industries.
Yeah.
Especially, there's a lot of like flavor houses out there. They use them a lot. Any other big they use the GCMS. And then beyond that, we have a lot of like filtration systems. And so if you go into our pilot plants, a bigger facility, you'll see things that they use in wineries
Yeah.
or breweries, right? Because they brew their wine or beer and then they want to filter it. So there's multiple ways to do that, but one of the ways we use in our process is to filter our own things we make.
Yeah. So sorry. Okay. So you're constantly changing the Impossible Burger to better meet the needs of your customers, I guess. So how often? So I know that. So like right near us, we have a restaurant called Hula Hands, and the
Okay.
Impossible Burger is actually there. So we're planning to go there soon and try it out for ourselves. But so like every single time you make an update, how big of that update to the actual burger does it have to be in order to be like immediately changed to where you send it out to?
So we do update the formulas all the time, but that doesn't determine where the burger goes to right now.
No, I mean like so
Or-
you send it out like let's say like every day you send it to new people. So every
Okay.
single time you find like something new to make the burger better, how often do you actually change the burger itself to the people you send out?
Oh, I see, I see, I see. You mean the final formulation that's going out to the customers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's hard to say. We are working all the time. That's a majority of what I do, and majority of what us on the R&D side do is um, do work to feed into those changes.
Mm-hmm.
But we always wait on. Um, I mentioned the tasters before, right? So we keep external tasters, and we wait on that feedback to see if we should implement a change. How often? Yeah, I didn't look this up. I'd guess it's happened maybe twice since we started going into
Mm-hmm.
restaurants.
Yeah.
So it does not happen too often because
Right.
implementing the change like does build in delays because then we got to change the process and we got to use a new ingredient or use
And
different
that costs money with the manufacturers, I guess.
exactly. So it's always needs to be a very clear and big difference in the better. If
Yeah.
it's the same, then chances are we won't go forward with it unless there's some issue with the previous formulation. Um, but yeah, the solid answer or not so solid answer is it doesn't change too often,
Yeah.
and um, and over the past year or so since we've been selling it in restaurants, I'd say once or twice maybe.
Yeah. So yesterday I went to I'm not sure if you know of the company Dow Chemical or it was Dow DuPont. So I
Yeah.
went to their northeastern facility in Pennsylvania yesterday for they invited a bunch of research participants and so I went there and I talked to a lot of R&D chemists and scientists, I guess, and a lot of people kind of in the more managerial positions or technical services. So how do you think you would determine which type of field you'd want to be in based on, like, is it based on your college degree if you get a PhD or something, or based on just your interest or the company itself?
You mean what type of track to go into during your education?
Yeah, like if you go to a university and you get a PhD in chemistry, does that mean when you join a company like Dow Chemical or even Impossible Foods, would you just generally go into R&D research, or how many options are there really?
So I guess if it's your first job at a school, the option is just that, something pertinent to what you were doing in school.
Hmm.
So that, background will count a little bit, and they'll stick you in the lab, right? But as you there for a time, you'll start getting all these random projects coming across your desk, right?
Yeah.
'Cause work needs to be done, and you're the one they have available, right?
Hmm.
So then it, like, a part of the job and part of the evaluation is knowing how to, like, learn new things, right? So
Yeah.
you'll look up research papers and learn a new process and try to implement it, get a feel for it, and um, you know, accomplish a new task that didn't happen while you're in school or
Yeah.
may not be strictly um, in your major. And if you go all the way to a PhD, chances are your field of study and expertise will narrow down,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So the upside is it's good for a very specific job description, right? The
Hmm.
downside is you might just get stuck doing that one thing for a while, or if they're looking for something else, you may not be the right fit. But what's important is to be flexible, and once you show that, then yeah, you have opportunity to apply to open positions in the same company once they open up, and say, I want to move to this research group. It's more has to do with my background. That's happened a lot at Impossible, since we started. We hired
Hmm.
people into roles and we needed some jobs done. But once we hired more people, the original person would be like, well, let me take over this role because it's more my background, more what I
Yeah.
know. It makes sense for this new person to take over my role. So it's things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
then,
what does sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what does Impossible Foods look for when they hire employees, and what methods and how many phases do you require before you bring people on board?
Okay, so this I had to have a meeting with our recruiters to
Yeah.
get good answers for this. So here are the solid answers. What they look for on paper is, do this person's past accomplishments and skills meet the technical requirements for the job,
Yeah.
right? So they have a good sense of do that. That's their full-time job, is to see if someone meets the requirements for the position.
Hmm.
After that, what they do is they'll give you a phone call, the recruiters, right?
Hmm.
Nobody, none of the scientist people, not the hiring managers, the recruiter will give you a phone call, and they'll start talking to you about, if you're a good cultural fit. That
Yeah.
means, do you have a passion for the company mission? Like save the earth, or um, um, make make everything more sustainable, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you you know do do you align with the similar values that the company has? And one thing they'll ask you is, have you tried the burger? What do you think? And it's more to just see if you're a good cultural fit, if you speak well on the phone, or
Yeah.
um, you're good to talk to. Then once you get past that, you go to the hiring manager. So the hiring manager will have like a phone interview or a video interview like we're doing.
Yeah.
And because people are applying from all over the place, right? They're far away. And if that goes well, the hiring manager, the person who needs someone to supervise or whatever, um, then they'll call you in for an interview in person. So that's where you'll spend a half a day or a day at the company and go through like a barrage of interviews. You'll get breaks and all that, but
Yeah.
like roughly once an hour, a different person or group of people will come in, talk to you, um, and we'll see how that goes. And
Mhm.
then after that is the final phase where you start talking about compensation, whatever, and trying to get all the details and paperwork sorted if both parties agree for the hiring.
Right. So what exactly goes on a day-to-day basis in your office and lab?
Day-to-day basis. So let's start with me personally. I'd say my time split 50-50 with the lab and the desk. So I'll talk about the lab. Again, it's highly dependent on the current project, but the overall thing has been working to improve the formula, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, yeah, I'll go into the lab, walk right through it into our kitchen, and there we have like all the ingredients, raw ingredients set up, and all the equipment and everything, and even the cooking surfaces
Yeah.
to try out new formulations, see how they go, and implement that. We also have an awesome kitchen team that helps with the day-to-day work doing that.
Yeah.
So that would be most typical on most of the R&D side.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the rest of the lab, we have this whole analytics team. They take all the things we're making as raw ingredients, to actually sell the burger, and they got to keep analyzing it constantly to see if it's good enough.
Yeah.
Quality assurance and quality control. That's happening constantly. And at the same time, once we are, still a relatively new company, and we are selling items with like a expiration date, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do we know that expiration date gets there? Like, how do you know it's 6 months? Well, what we do and we still doing is every few batches, we have extra burgers made and we store them in freezers or in a
Yeah.
fridge, and you got to constantly evaluate those. Have they gone bad?
Yeah.
Now, if they haven't gone bad, according to the numbers, there's, it's nothing dirty in there, no critters, then yeah, let's taste them. Does it taste bad then? Is it
Yeah.
getting oxidized, like freezer burned? And so that's going on constantly too. So a lot of the typical day has a lot of tastings, a lot of making burgers, and that type of work. And then I said 50-50 in the office. Well, that's after I'm doing an experiment or test. I got to go through the data, make it look nice and put it in a way that makes sense to talk to other people about it. So I got to report to supervisor. We have group meetings where we bring up important things that just happened, and go on from there. So it's a lot of like work in the lab and kitchen, and a lot of talking to almost everyone else at the company,
Yeah.
each other updated on what's going on. So it's important to, have those communication skills.
Yeah.
And I mean, since you guys do this, I think you guys are all right with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have a solid basis talking to people like you, so it's really good for us, I guess. So are there any companies rivaling Impossible Foods, or would you say that you're the first of your kind?
So there are companies that make, like vegetarian or vegan or plant-based patties, right?
Yeah, veggie
And
burgers like
at Impossible, we don't like to use the V words at all. So we're a little different. We are not going after people who are vegetarian or vegan. We consider, I think we think they're set. There's
Yeah.
lots of vegetables in the world
You
that
go
are good.
after the meat lovers trying to make money.
Yeah, we want to go after the meat eaters, and exactly,
Yeah.
and so we see ourselves very different from that type of company. We always meat company. At least those are the standards we hold to ourselves in our process facilities and in our lab, right?
Yeah.
And and what really makes us different is our magic ingredient. Do you guys know about this? Or?
No.
No. Actually, I think I do. I watched a few videos on like YouTube and there's
Yeah,
Wired and stuff. It was like this red kind of a sauce
exactly.
or something.
Yeah. It's the red color. What gives it the red color? It's
Yeah.
leg hemoglobin.
Mm-hmm.
So we have hemoglobin in our blood, right? It's red. It has iron, carries oxygen.
Yeah.
We found that certain plants make their own version of that molecule, and it's
Yeah.
leg hemoglobin, like legume hemoglobin.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes us special is we found a way to mass produce that, right? And that is our special ingredient. That's what makes our food pink and bloody. When you
Yeah.
turn it, it turns brown and meaty. So
Yeah.
that's what makes it very unique. And I don't think any of the other companies have um, that type of process going.
Yeah.
And going back to the flavor, I mentioned, we have a GTMS, we figure out flavor profiles and molecules. A lot of other companies will just take cooked beef flavor and just, put it on top of their
Yeah.
food. We don't do that. We have the heme, which is surprisingly important in making the flavor. And then we have all these other, again, from plants, we have these sugars, amino acids or whatever, and they'll do their chemical reactions while you're cooking to produce the beef or meat flavor profile.
Yeah. So the Impossible Burger has like several videos on YouTube, like we mentioned it, like on Wired and BuzzFeed as well, where everyday people are kind of shocked by like we have this absolutely vegetarian vegan thing tasting like actual meat. So how has your fan base been expanding? Is it more word of mouth or social media?
So the sense I get, it's word of mouth and social media. Yeah, we're not the ones, getting that Super Bowl ad
Yeah.
or anything like that. So a lot of the stuff I see online is, we grant very open interviews to food writers or
Yeah.
writers of technology writers. Everyone's interested, so we, host them or go out to see them, and they get to they want almost, to a certain extent,
Yeah.
and so it's a lot of like press media stories that
Mhm.
are mostly good. And then it's the social media aspect. We were always early on, feeding the burger to celebrities, that have their Instagram, that have their whatever else you use, and yeah, they'll take pictures and they'll send it out there to all their followers.
Yeah.
So that was another way to do the ad campaign, quote unquote, without actually,
Spending
going
money
the
on it.
spending
Yeah.
like millions of dollars for a nationwide television ad, and who knows what,
Super Bowl.
who knows who's watching and all that. So this is what I've seen from my perspective. Again, I'm not the professional in these matters, but what I've seen from my perspective, that kind of like helped keep the cool factor while going on.
So Impossible Foods has been featured on the press in places like Time Magazine, CNBC, Forbes, and Business Insider. So what is the main thing the press highlights when featuring your company? And how do you recommend young entrepreneurs and even us to get
Yeah.
featured?
Okay, what is the main thing the press highlights in featuring our company? Usually it's the catchphrase I see a lot is the burger that bleeds.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so this is the thing. Everyone comes in, not knowing what's going on. We take them into the lab. We take them into our pilot plant facility, see a smaller scale of the process going on. And once they taste it, it's like eye-opening. It's like, whoa, how'd you do this? Are you sure there's no meat in here? And this is, the fully dressed burger with the buns, lettuce, tomato, everything on their sauce.
Right.
And and so that's, I think, what a lot of the press kind of gives us the headline. It's like, oh my goodness, taste this burger, wow.
Yeah.
And then when it goes through actually reading the articles, they kind of like just give a matter of fact rundown of what they experienced while at the company, right? So like almost once a month we host a media visit, right? And I'll go onto the texture analyzer that I mentioned earlier, it's like the arm that's poking the food,
Yeah.
and I'll put in a crazy attachment and I'll have some meat in there, I'm just letting it run, and everyone loves to see these things, like, oh wow. So pictures and videos of that get out, and then yeah, they describe their experience step by step. They went into the lab, they saw this happened, someone said this.
Yeah.
Then they go in the kitchen, all this other new stuff, and then they see the pilot facility. Then they talk to the CEO. What did the CEO say? They have all these questions for our CEO, and
Yeah.
those,
So I have a little bit of like a funny question. So when did you start loving burgers?
oh, it was, well, this is good question. This is an awesome question. This is kind of the root of what we do. So I first started loving burgers. I think it was like family functions, and again with the extended family, friends of the family, we're like in the backyard or in the park. There's a barbecue. Everyone's barbecuing chicken or something, and then they're barbecuing kebabs, and then they have the flat patties. the
Yeah.
burgers. And once I got that, I was like, oh, this is the best. So I'd always make it my mission, even though like I was like maybe 7 or 10 years old. I'd make it my mission to have at least two of those. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have two burgers and I'll eat whatever else. I don't eat like that anymore, but so that was once it came to a barbecue and all that, burgers were my favorite.
Yeah.
And
Well, has your family tried the Impossible Burger yet?
yeah, a few times.
Hmm.
Yeah, and some of them like it, some of them don't. My mom's like the internal skeptic. She's like, no, this
Yeah.
isn't right. What's going on? And then like my cousins, my brother, people he knows, or like his girlfriend, we all try together when we're having a get together, and people mostly like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, last party I had where I was able to get some and cook it. That actually ran out before the beef burgers. Like
Yeah, I
everyone,
guess everyone wants to try something that's like I'm not
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
They want to
It's
try
like
it, they take
different
a bite,
stuff.
and it's good. It's like, oh, I'm gonna finish this.
I have
Yeah.
another question stemming from that. So, the Impossible Burger at the moment, it's not being sold at stores like Costco right now, right?
Uh-huh.
So, is there a reason why you chose to go the path of selling it to restaurants directly, than selling it to the consumer directly at these wholesalers?
Well, the main reason is it starts as with us being a new company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we started selling in restaurants in 2016.
Yeah.
After that, in 2017 is when we opened a production facility in
Oh,
Oakland, our
okay.
factory, right?
Yeah.
So that was still we were just on the skin of our teeth doing everything. And
Yeah.
once our production facility opened, it still hasn't reached capacity yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still doing, comparatively speaking, small scale.
Right.
And that was the reason we went into restaurants, is to keep the exposure small,
Yeah.
because once we start out, we're bound to mess up here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So we want less people to know or taste that.
Yeah.
And we get very practiced, very good at making burgers in a factory or food production facility. Then we'll one thing will happen. We'll reach full production capacity in Oakland,
Yeah.
and after that, we'll have enough meat or food ready to sell it to the supermarkets, which requires a lot more food than any.
Do you guys currently have the connections to actually like get in touch with like the Costco board and say we want this in stores and nationwide?
Yeah. So our business side, they're very good about that. They've been talking to all the supermarkets,
Yeah.
Walmart, Costco, Target. I think maybe even Amazon. But they but it's a decision. It depends, on the best deal you get, what
Mhm.
makes most sense for our company. Like, do we want to still, once we reach capacity, we have enough to sell. Do we want to get it to as many people as soon as possible, or are we
Yeah.
still in a stage where we need more practice and we, maybe go for a smaller chain first
Right.
and then go up to a bigger chain? So that's still in flux and in discussion.
And both things, I mean, both things have like a lot of advantages. If you start small and then you kind of go step by step, you're bound to like know your mistakes. But then if you go very big quickly, expanding a lot can always, like I've seen it in Shark Tank and stuff, because that's how we got into this almost. If you expand a lot at one time, you can lead to a big screw up, and that's never good either.
Yeah, exactly.
So we always end on the same question. What specific
Okay.
strategies would you give the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders to succeed in high school and, in Rahul's case, middle school / high school?
um, so I guess I got to think back to my high school days. I guess one thing is don't let yourself get bored.
Yeah.
So I remember I was in some English class, and in my high school they'll you take a certain English class and you're on that track through your 4 years, right? But from junior to senior year, I was like, I want to jump to the upper level. I want to jump to honors English.
Yeah.
So you just go for it, and you just went and talked to the teacher. He gave me reading assignments over the summer, and they gave me a test the next school term, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, you're in. So just keep yourself challenged, because I remember in high school, a lot of the time, you know, you do something like, oh, well, this is easy, or this is like, that's it, you know, this is what you have for me. And you just kind of get bored with it and say, you know, I'm going to like not even worry about this because I find it easy.
Yeah.
You should know very well that there's always something more difficult to do, and you will be asked to do that in the rest of your life. Something more difficult. So there's always a next step, next level. So just go for it. Ask your teachers, ask people you know, like, hey, what else can I do? And I had a second one, but I forgot. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
allowing
you
us
for
to interview you
allowing us to
today.
interview. Yeah.
It was a pleasure to learn from your experiences and what you've seen and done in Impossible Foods. So today we interviewed Haani Jafri, a scientist at Impossible Foods. It's a pleasure to have interviewed you today, and thank you.
It was an honor
Thank
and
you.
privilege.